But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Well, shit. Can you hear it now? Thank you for telling me. Am I audible now? I had gone far into an introduction and stuff, and let me see, that looks like you should be hearing me now. Are you not hearing me, Riveroon? How are you doing? Let me just make absolutely certain. Oh, good. Yeah, so Let me just make a couple of small adjustments here. There, that's better. I decided to set up both of my chats this way since it turned out to be so easy to do it. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, as I'm looking at all the interesting bullshit we've got to look at today, it was occurring to me that really, Jason Hickel and Jackson Hinkle really need to get together and agree on some kind of a fucking naming convention, because I'm really getting sick of confusing the two of them, which is ridiculously easy to do. It's like Naomi Klein and Naomi Wolf, except worse. But let's see. Now, somebody had asked me to look at some of the Ethan Klein stuff. And the thing is, I really barely even heard of Ethan Klein. So, and I couldn't really find anything particularly good as a result of that. Like, I mean, I went to his channel and there was nothing on there that was really particularly clear. It gave me an idea of what this was even about. But Xanderhole, it turns out, has done a video, and he's defending Ethan Klein, which already tells me something. I mean, I can't think of a worse curse than may you be defended by Xanderhall. He says that Ethan Klein is being slandered. I mean, and since I don't know Ethan Klein for anything. I don't even really know much. I know much about Hassan either. I don't follow him really. I see him like being hate watched by people I hate watch. But yeah, but the thing is, I know Xanderhole pretty well at this point. Bonsoir, Adrien. And I wouldn't believe a weather report from that motherfucker. So, let's see what he has to say about Ethan Klein, shall we?
Alright, everybody. Before I even get into anything here, I have to front load this segment, otherwise I'll lose the retention of the Hassan fans in my audience, and they'll leave a dislike and a hate.
No. You'll gain the retention of the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel fans in your audience, of which there are probably none. Since there are only a few in my audience, and if they were going to be in anyone's audience, I think they would be in mine. But we'll hate watch you, Xanderhall, don't worry, we'll stick with it, as painful as it is likely to be. God, this is HD. What kind of shitty video quality does he have?
Without actually watching to the point where I make the arguments that would probably make them go, oh, he did that? Wait, really? And then they'd go tippity-tippity-tappity and Google it, and then they'd find out he did, and they'd be like,
glad to hear your power's back on.
So I'm going to go ahead and front load this segment with those things, because otherwise, that's what's going to happen. Hassan used to be one of my favorite content creators in the lefty sphere. I thought that he was doing a very good service by being so wide-reaching and progressive, but he started getting deep into foreign policy about a year and a half ago, and his takes have gotten abysmal.
Which is to say that his takes have been reasonably good and recognize that the role of the United States in the world, they're not the good guys, Xanderhall. They're the baddies.
Being anti-Taiwan and pro-China, anti-Hong Kong, anti-Tibet. He is also very pro-Russia. At least he has walked a lot of these takes back, but the fact that...
Which is to say, okay, what we're getting here... I mean, again, this is Xanderhole. And Xanderhole, I mean, like, the first time we saw Xanderhole, the first time I saw Xanderhole, he was lying his ass off about Professor Flowers. So when he says that somebody is pro-Russia, that probably means that they are not 100% sold on the idea that the U.S. should be constantly escalating a proxy war with Russia.
Faulted to them and tried to defend them for so long is definitely problematic. Everything from arguing that Russia was never going to invade, and if you thought they were going to invade, despite all the evidence they were going to invade, you were a war hawk who just wanted war with Russia, to claiming that annexation of Crimea was totally justified, claiming that defense forces of Ukraine are all just Nazis.
Well, a lot of them are, to the extent that these days the propaganda argument, I mean, I've actually heard them make this argument that actually the reason they got those swastika tattoos and stuff is because it's ironic, because people were calling them Nazis. If you actually listen to any kind of leftist in Ukraine, they're freaking out about this, have been for a while. I mean, you can't even make basic points like Bandera was a mass murderer who was responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Jews in Ukraine because he's a national hero, and they have huge, extremely just disgusting monuments to him, including in Lemberg, as Lviv or Lvov is known in Yiddish, the site of the Lemberg pogrom, which Stepan Bandera himself personally played a major role in inciting and carrying out. Yeah. Maybe when your thing is that you're an ex-Nazi and that's your grift, you shouldn't be downplaying the issue.
Trying to fight against, the liberation.
Yeah, Riveroon. I'm sure they're not his positions. Because every time I hear somebody, declare those to be somebody's positions, it turns out those are not their positions. I mean, it's this thing, it is way older than Zanderhol himself. Which is to say, it goes back to at least the 20th century. Where if you point out that the U.S. is doing something bad, then you will be accused of being a diehard supporter of whoever the U.S. official enemy is, no matter what you have to say about them. And so no, I don't trust a word this guy says.
Ukrainian people from the country not being a Russian satellite state, I guess. He said a lot of really out-of-pocket stuff. And, in fact, Dylan Burns...
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the Ukrainian people, Zanderhol? Draft dodging there is a national sport. The government there, after, a year or so ago, actually probably 2 years now, banning pretty much every opposition party that was worthy of the name, in terms of being able to get a significant result in an election, just decided to just cancel the elections that they were supposed to be held earlier this year. So now they have no electoral mandate. They're just a dictatorship. And they have a huge problem with recruiting because everybody is trying to, draft dodging is a major thing. And, people like to compare, in situation in the invasion of Ukraine to, the genocidal situation in Gaza. And one thing to note there is that the resistance in Gaza has so many people volunteering that they can't handle it because they just don't, they don't have any way to absorb that many new people. Whereas the Ukrainian armed forces has, they have to actually send people into, discos and train stations and places to just grab people who look like they might be of military age and might be evading the draft. Because that's how hard it is to find somebody willing to fight for that regime.
A beloved journalist content creator.
Hello, imperialism bad. I don't know if you were here early enough to hear what this particular Zanderhol video is about, but you were asking about Ethan Klein. And I figured, what better introduction to Ethan Klein and whatever his bullshit is than to look at Zanderhol's bullshit defending him.
Endangering his life unarmed in the battlefields of Ukraine and Russia. Journalism. has actually nearly died multiple times by being struck at his position by the Russians, mind you. And they, of course, lied about why they did it, claiming that he was part of an armed squad when they were all unarmed press. Regardless, though, Russia's awful. Hassan's made excuses for it. But being in Ukraine, Dylan platformed a few Ukrainians who are all mostly left-leaning, a couple of them even ex-Hassan fans, all to basically see some clips of Hassan talking about the conflict between Russia.
Well, I mean, left-leaning in what context? Because you have these so-called national anarchists in Ukraine who have openly talked about how they're actually kind of fine fighting alongside neo-Nazis. Which is to say, as far as I'm concerned, no. Like, literally never, because, you know, there are lots of people who would not be fine there, no matter what side they were on, because the whole point of being a neo-Nazi is that you kill those people.
And Ukraine, and his takes on it. And the takes are just...
Hey, Imperialism Bad, if you've got a video of his, like, I went for a look on a look through YouTube trying to find some stuff of his about whatever this current thing is, because I really, I don't know, I don't really know Ethan Klein from anybody. I've never watched anything of his, to my knowledge. But if you've got a video in particular that you think would be a good introduction to whatever the hell's going on with him, please just drop the link in chat or drop the link in Discord and let me know. And we can switch over and do that. I mean, like, the main reason I'm doing this is because it is about Ethan Klein, and I figured it would be one way to sort of get into the subject.
Just awful, I imagine, to hear if you are a Ukrainian who is currently under siege from Russia, and you're seeing this, like, extremely spoiled, wealthy, white, rich Beverly Hills.
I wonder how it would feel if you were in Gaza and were watching this spoiled, white Florida streamer asshole who is trivializing the genocide that they're dealing with and telling people that, you know, like, condemning people for even just refusing to lie about the positions of the things the perpetrators of that genocide have done. How do you think they might feel about that, Sanderhall? Yeah, I mean, if you've got a link to something Ethan Klein that would... something that would actually help me understand what this is even about and stuff. What his thing is, and then we could definitely watch that. I would totally be up for that, but I just couldn't find it. So if you drop that in chat or the Discord or something like that, I mean, we'll do it.
LA streamer talk about how you're a Nazi that needs to be conquered by the Russians, right?
Except, like, again, these are two very different things. I'd love to see him actually provide some quotes on that, because pointing out that there's a huge problem with neo-Nazis in Ukraine and neo-Nazis having a lot of access to power in Ukraine is not the same thing at all as saying that Russia had any right to invade them, or even that that was a good thing, because rather obviously the invasion has predictably increased the support of neo-Nazis. It has actually made the problem worse. Like, so... God, he's full of shit.
Hassan, and they did so very well, and in response to this, instead of actually watching the video, or even trying to debunk it, or even hearing it out, and maybe finding...
Got it, thank you, Imperialism Bed. We'll switch right over.
Dylan as...
because I had meant to do this. Ah, shit, that's not what I'm trying to do. Oh, can I just please just have the bloody link, Discord? Why do you have to do this with links, Discord?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here to address something that happened on Thursday's show. We were doing our post-election COPE stream, and the subject of Israel had came up, and here is what was said about it. Let's take a look.
Trump
is so pro-Israel, it's insane.
Not only is he pro-Israel,
him and Bibi like talk a lot, and Bibi's become a lot like Trump.
Yeah,
so.
Bibi's his guy. They're like homies. Bibi's celebrating last night.
Yeah, except, I mean, if we're going to talk about people who are like homies, Netanyahu and Biden actually go back like 30 years. They were very close. They are actually close personal friends.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like so Trump coded.
Well, he was like a moderating voice, and
No, he's talking about Yoav Gallant, and no, he wasn't a fucking moderating voice. He's the guy who announced the policy of starving Gaza to death. Like, he's a moderating voice in the very limited sense that when, like, most of the war cabinet started talking about they wanted to invade Lebanon, he was the one to point out that, yeah, that probably wouldn't end well for Israel because they're flat out getting their asses kicked in Gaza, and Hezbollah has way better weapons, way better training, and is in just way better shape than the Qassam brigades on their best day. And so he was taking the position that it was unrealistic, it was a really bad idea. But then when it became clear that it meant his job, he came around and said, okay, we'll fucking invade Lebanon, and that has not gone well for them at all. Like 2 months into it, they're not even really over the border. He was right. But Netanyahu doesn't like people who are right, apparently, even when they are as ghoulish and fascist as he is. So he sacked him and put Katz on there, who was telling him that invading Lebanon would be a great idea and wouldn't like totally wreck all of their armor.
The war room.
Yeah.
And he got rid of him, or at least a more moderate voice. I don't know anything about the guy.
Here we're talking about Yoav Gallant, who was a member of Netanyahu's war
Cute dog, though.
who just yesterday was fired by Netanyahu because he wanted to end the war.
No, he didn't. That wasn't why he was fired. And when Israel talks about ending the war, it's really you have to be very clear on this. When they use the term ceasefire, they don't mean that they are committing to stop carrying out aggression and genocide and mass murder and all the rest of it. They mean that they're going to stop for as long as it suits them, while reserving the right to go off and do more of it as they deem expedient.
And Netanyahu wants to continue the war.
I mean, but that isn't what this is about. And I mean, it sounded like he said he wasn't sure who the hell Gallant was a second ago. So maybe this is an honest mistake, because if you aren't really into the weeds on the fight in the war cabinet, I mean, Gallant and Netanyahu, even apart from the Lebanon thing, they hated each other. Like, they weren't talking. They were, like, in charge of a genocide together, and they wouldn't sit in a room together if they could help it.
Therefore, he fired him. Once he was fired, people in Israel took to the streets and are protesting because, as far right as Netanyahu's, war cabinet is, he is literally a moderating voice in that cabinet and was the only one representing the people and pushing for the war to end.
Maybe he's just wrong about this, but he is that. That is not, he wasn't pushing for the war to end. He was, advocating against invading Lebanon not on any kind of principled grounds, just on the grounds that there was no way it would go well for Israel. They would not get away with it, as indeed they haven't.
The problem with Yoav, which I don't even think Ela probably knew at the time, because this war's been going on for so long, is that he's somewhat infamous for this quote here. He said on October 8th, there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. We are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. When he's talking,
he also said no water. Like, I mean, and he's listing, just indefinitely shutting off all the basic biological requirements humans have to this concentration camp that they have total control of the borders of. I mean, that was an open statement of genocidal intent.
About entering Gaza in the first phases of the war. Now, a lot of people look at this language and think that it's dehumanizing and genocidal. And
I mean, it is both of those things. Are you about to disagree with that?
I'm one of those people.
Oh, okay, good. That's a relief. I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about this guy. I've come in the middle of this. And the way he was saying that, it was like, is he about to say, no, actually, it's okay? And the thing is, he said in the early phases of the war. And it's not been the early phases of the war. It has been the entire time. Almost nothing has been allowed in. Like, before the 7th of October of last year, over 550 trucks a day of humanitarian aid were allowed in by Israel. Israel doesn't provide any. They just allow it in. Under the Geneva Conventions, they're obligated to also provide it at their own expense, but they don't. But, yeah, and that, it's worth noting, was never near enough. It was nowhere near enough. And, like, they're lucky in Gaza to see that many truckloads in a fucking month now.
I agree that this is a horrible thing to say, and I don't defend him, and I never would defend him, a statement like this.
What's the but?
Which I assume people who watch...
Well, I mean... The thing, I mean, there are lots of people who call it a war who are also acknowledging the genocide, but also want to acknowledge that there is an actual military confrontation going on the ground, between the resistance forces and the occupation forces, and to also honor the fact that actually the resistance forces are kicking ass, actually.
This show, know and understand. Now, a year plus later...
Like, they're literally...
For what?
Has never been a genocide that wasn't in the context of a war. That's basically always how that works. So, the two things... I mean, yeah, some people use war as, like, this euphemism to avoid acknowledging the genocide. But there are both things going on.
For whatever reason...
And usually there are both
the same
things.
Guy who's advocating for the war to end in Israel. And Ela...
Well, not for whatever reason. First of all, he's not advocating for it to end. He was saying, don't invade Lebanon. You know, continue, escalate in the West Bank where you have a better where, they have better chances because they already control the occupied West Bank. That's in the name. He was not making some principled argument there. He was just pointing out that there was no way that Israel was going to do well in Lebanon now when they got their asses kicked in 2006.
The people are rioting, the people are upset, and the people who want the war to end are upset that he got fired, and that's basically all that happened. We're talking about the fact that he's the only person that wants to end the war, and I personally...
okay. I mean, taking into account that he apparently didn't know anything. He said something like that he didn't know anything about Galan to start out with. Okay, maybe he's mistaken, but it's like, I can't say enough. He did not say he didn't want to end the war. He just pointed out that Lebanon was a bad idea.
I don't understand how that's not relevant. Here from The Guardian, a left-leaning newspaper you guys all probably know.
Left-leaning, my ass.
Benjamin Netanyahu fires Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, triggering protests in Israel. Demonstration in Tel Aviv, widely seen by Israel's allies as a break on far-right elements of the Israeli government.
Yeah, widely seen by his allies. And that's precisely why we should be a little bit skeptical about that. Because who are those allies?
Again, this isn't just my opinion. This is opinion that's held by internationally, that he is a moderating voice on the war cabinet, once again, advocating for the war to end, which is what I thought we all wanted. Here's another article from The Guardian.
Well, no, not... That is not what they... Let's just be a little bit serious here, because that is not what he means by anything to do with the war ending. What Netanyahu means by ceasefire, it's nothing to do with what the Palestinians want. It's nothing to do with what people in Lebanon want. It's nothing to do with what the Solidarity Movement's been demanding and all the other people who have been appalled by this fucking genocide.
Guardian, Yoav Gallant reportedly says...
I mean, and look at this quote here from Gallant. There's nothing left in Gaza to do. The major achievements have been achieved. That is just a lie. Like, they had a list of stated objectives, stated military objectives that they claimed they were going to achieve in Gaza. One was to destroy the Hamas movement and the Qassam brigades and the armed resistance generally. That shit hasn't happened. There's no sign that they've even been like quantitatively degraded. They're still pounding the IOF every fucking day. He said, bring the settlers back to the Gaza envelope settlements and the other settlers to the north. That hasn't happened either. In fact, it's looking like that may never happen at this point. And there were a few other things, and literally not a single one of them has actually been achieved. But, I mean, this is a thing where it's just like they're trying to sort of declare victory and do it in a way that does not involve any commitment not to do it again.
The Israeli army has nothing left to do in Gaza. The ousted defense minister also quoted as saying Netanyahu rejected peace deals against advice of his security officials. As you can see, I'm not saying any of this to defend him. What he said and what he's done should very well be investigated by the International Criminal Court, and if he's found, he should submit to an investigation. If he's found guilty, then charge him.
That's kind of backwards. Usually you charge somebody and then they're tried. Usually you investigate somebody, then you charge them if charges are justified, then you try them, and then they're found guilty. You don't find somebody guilty and then try them.
But what I am saying is that I think that while Ela misspoke and said he's a good guy, her intention was that, you know, this guy is trying to end the war. And I'm pretty...
Well, okay, and I would be very interested... You know, he's saying she misspoke. Okay, I don't know anything about her. But maybe she should explain her position herself? Then, because if that's what she said, that's kind of a fucked up thing to say. Like, at a certain point in World War II, Heinrich Himmler wanted to end the war. It was like days before it ended anyway, to be clear. He was running around trying to make a separate deal and sort of cut Hitler out. I mean, if you watch Downfall, you will find a lot of this history, because at some point Hitler finds out about it and decides he wants to have him shot. But that wouldn't make him a good guy in any sense of the word. That just makes him a prick who is realistic and knows that there's no way this thing ends other than them losing.
Pretty sure we're all on the same page as that being a good thing.
I feel like the reason I brought it up was mainly to express the frustration with Bibi and him firing the one guy that was somewhat, attempting at moderation. There wasn't really so much to say Gallant is a good guy. I shouldn't have used that word. That was a bad choice on my part, considering...
But, like, moderation means so many different things. That is such a weasel word. That is such a fucking weasel word. Because what we're talking about, if we're serious about it, is he's a realist. And he's looking at their capabilities after a year of their ground forces getting wrecked in Gaza by the Qassam brigades, and looking at Lebanon and that mountainous terrain and Hezbollah, who have had 18 years since they kicked Israel out in 2006 to skill up, to arm up, to like make qualitative technological leaps in their defensive capability. And he said, yeah, realistically, this is just going to be a great way to ruin our entire armored units, which were already running out of armor. I mean, it was he isn't like a moderating influence. He was like minimally rational. That's the word I'm looking for. He was like the one person willing to actually use some level of thinking and apply it to the likely consequences of invading Lebanon.
Said that I was not even thinking of. Really coming from the concerning feeling of like, we have Trump in office and Bibi just fired the guy that is opposing him. That's all.
He stopped opposing him, though.
I do understand.
He like stopped opposing him. When he realized it meant his job, he stopped opposing the invasion of Lebanon.
And that was not a good choice of words, and I would not have said that again. So I'm stepping away for a little while from being on camera and being on the podcast. It's too much, and it's not fair for everybody. And yeah.
So that's where our head was at when we said that.
I mean, so far I have to say it's like he just basically has an annoying liberal superficial understanding of what's going on and what's at stake and what people's motivations are and shit. He calls, in this video, he calls Hassan Piker a weaselly little liar. I hope we're going to get into that.
But now people like Hassan are going
on their
channels and accusing us of supporting a war criminal.
That is an... Okay, Adria says, so they're on a first name basis with Bibi. That is actually an Israeli thing. Everybody's got fucking nicknames. All the politicians have nicknames, and they just call them that. Actually, in this one and only fucking regard, Ireland and Australia are similar. Like, they will tend to refer to their politicians by their first names or their like nickname. So that is just a thing. That is just sort of that is just how everybody does it there, in terms of like they all call him like Bibi or Yoav or whatever, or Arik for Ariel Sharon and the rest of them.
Anyway, here's what Hassan said this evening about the clip that sent everybody into a frenzy.
Crazy. I just hate how Ethan is brigading smaller content creators like the deprogram because he couldn't get to you. It's fucking gross how he keeps picking smaller content creators that are just getting by, and he is sitting on his golden throne and just straight up...
Okay, I don't know about anything. I've never even heard of the deprogram, so I don't know what any of that is about.
No, he's just...
I can't get over the fact that they keep fucking crying about me responding to these communities. Like, this is the biggest socialist podcast. They have like... They have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Second Thought has 2 million subscribers. When can I respond to these people? When is it warranted? Like, give me a fucking break.
He's just like aligning with all these fucking drama peddlers like Keemstar and shit in an effort to try and get me fucking banned is psychotic to me, you know? I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a Weasley little fucking liar. He's just...
Oh, he's using his hand. It's like... Is he banging his head into the camera to do that? It kind of looked like... It was like... How would you even get that satisfying noise?
Straight up lying. He's just lying right now. In fact, this is a lie.
Okay, then why didn't you tell us... Okay, imperialism bad. You've actually followed this. Perhaps you could this would be a good moment for you to, like, give us some of your knowledge, because I lack it. Yeah, Bibi the Butcher, that's not bad.
Myself with Keemstar. Once again, I'll show you. I went and fished out the original.
Okay. Be honest, you absolute fucking loser. She literally she said she hopes vets get PTSD, or is PTSD a brand of hummus? I wonder which crowd is DMing her hate messages. Nice trying to avoid accountability for a little. Okay. Who is he? Okay, is this that face? That like icon? It's difficult to recognize. Is this something? I guess this must be Ethan. Oh, and where do we know about this? The transfer request and stuff. Where do we know about that from?
I was talking about Frogan getting shit from a ton of conservatives for her wonderful remarks about hoping American military men get PTSD. I was showing it to say it's not my fault that she's getting harassed when this clip of hers going mega viral on Twitter and being called out by the worst people on the internet, right? Look at, these are all conservative shitbags. These are all people that I disagree with and have openly...
Well, I mean, what do you think about what she said, though? Are you because it kind of felt like you were suggesting for a second that people would be right to object to that? I mean, look, if you take into account what U.S. soldiers are actually doing when they're sent over to other people's countries to wreck them, yeah, I mean, if they did not come away from that with some level of trauma, that would be bad, because people ought to be traumatized by doing fucked up shit. Usually they are. And in fact, the U.S. Army, one of the reasons they take PTSD seriously is because they want people to be able to go and do fucked up shit to people and not have any lasting psychological sequelae from it.
Terrible things about, including Keemstar. So, like, the way that he singles him out and says, oh, Ethan is co-signing Keemstar, is he's a fucking liar, dude. He's a weaselly little... He's a fucking liar, dude.
I don't think that's exactly what he said, though. I mean, I think what he said, it sounded to me more like he was saying that he was jumping on a creator that Keemstar was also jumping on. Like, that was my impression, that he was like, so whether they were doing it over the same thing, whether, you know, whatever their reasons were, there was an additive effect going on. You know, it was so that he was attacking somebody Keemstar's stands were also attacking. That's how I understood it. And I mean, is that... Like, is he not having a go at her over anything? Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying he's having a go at her over something else?
Weaselly little liar.
The person that they're talking about is Yoav Gallant. Yoav Gallant, alongside Benjamin Netanyahu, has an active petition for his arrest by the ICC.
That, the warrants, I don't know if you've all seen that chat. The ICC, after all this back and forth, and all this interference, and the U.S. threatening the ICC's members and their families, they did issue those arrest warrants. There are now arrest warrants active against Gallant and Netanyahu. And some countries have actually said they will enforce them. That, like, Canada has said that they will. But of course, the thing about, like, openly making a statement on that occurs to me is, if a country says they're going to enforce that arrest warrant, that's a country that, like, fucking Netanyahu and Gallant are not going to go to. Not voluntarily, anyway. Like, I mean, they would be more likely to go to a country that they thought was not going to, or that had not taken a position and they suspected probably wouldn't do it, than to go to a country that says, yeah, if they show up in our jurisdiction, we'll arrest them and send them to The Hague. End of.
That they are talking about here.
Who's he working with imperialism bad?
By Benjamin Netanyahu, the person that they're calling a moderating voice, said this, which is the reason why there is an active petition, an active application for a warrant for his arrest by the ICC. I don't know.
Yeah, and one might add that it is why 80% of the people in the entire world who are suffering what is technically called catastrophic hunger, 80% of them are in the Gaza Strip because of the order he gave that the U.S., apart from doing some PR bullshit, has reinforced him in doing. And the result of it is that people are being systematically starved to death.
I'm legitimately shocked.
The problem why I'm frustrated
Oh,
with
Jesus.
this whole situation, you guys know me. I'm more than willing, more than happy to address shortcomings and errors that I've made and take every chance I can to learn and grow from them, right? But the problem I have is that there's our subreddit and our community is overridden with these 8-year longtime ultra fans who can no longer, tolerate us, or they can no longer walk down this path with us as we've thrown our lot in with the Nazis, right? But like these same people.
Well, I mean, it's like, yeah, that is the sort of thing that will happen if you say something that can be read, by an honest person as potentially, like, apologetics for genocidal fucks. That is something that can happen. So at the very least, yeah, you're certainly right to be trying to clarify that if that's not what you meant to do, although what he's saying isn't great. What he's saying, it's like, the best you could say about it is he doesn't know anything about it, but I mean, he's married to an Israeli. She certainly is going to be up on what the media are saying there. And one thing I have to be, like, maybe you know this, but what gets printed in Hebrew in the Israeli media, and what the same writers, like Ronan Bergman, who you see his byline at the New York Times, what he will put in the New York Times in English is the exact opposite of what he will say in Hebrew for an Israeli audience over on Ynet or whatever. So she's somebody who's probably keeping up with that. She can certainly read, Hebrew language Israeli media, in which case she's, like, getting a picture that most, like, non-Hebrew speakers are not getting of the state of, the state of things. Because in the Israeli media, in Hebrew, they are talking quite openly about how badly this is actually going for the IDF.
Okay, they hold no standards. And Hassan can go out there and glaze an international terrorist organization and its leader and glaze up Hassan Nasrallah like he's a fucking great dude.
Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated. Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization.
I mean, like, it's declared a terrorist organization by the United States and Israel and their sycophant states. But, I mean, if you use the definition, if you use, like, standard legal definitions of terrorism, it doesn't fit. Because what Hezbollah has done, almost exclusively, since their foundation, has been to defend Lebanon against Israeli attacks, attacking the Israeli military. I mean, we need to just be done with this bullshit about, like, I mean, like, the U.S. will declare something a terrorist organization and everybody acts as if that actually means something. Like, they list Cuba as a state supporting terrorism. Cuba is literally a state that has been a regular victim of terrorism, originating from Miami, with the full knowledge and support of the U.S. government. I mean, this terrorism shit, it's just the language they use these days to, like, blacklist organizations that they don't like, the ruling class doesn't like, that the U.S. government doesn't like, or Britain, or, like, the Canadian government, and then it justifies all sorts of, like, heavy-handed, actual, like, terrorist tactics, like the fucking raid on Charlotte Cates's place in Vancouver last week, which was just fucking wild. They sent a fucking SWAT team with concussion grenades to Charlotte Cates's house. Like, what the fuck were they expecting there?
That is also a part of the Lebanese parliament.
Do we like them or no?
I think as a resistance group, they're pretty successful against Israel. They are a terrorist.
I mean,
organization. Like they're designated. They are designated by the American state as a terrorist organization.
I mean, so all he said there, quite correctly, is they are very successful in resisting Israel. And that is true. He's not standing anything else they did. He's not getting into, like, their role in Syria or anything like that. That, he is very correctly saying Hezbollah is the reason Israel is not occupying Lebanon now. Which is correct. Like, Israel was occupying southern Lebanon for a long time. That's why there is Hezbollah in the first place. It was a response to the massacres that happened the first time Israel invaded Lebanon. And since then, they have been Lebanon's really only line of defense because Lebanon doesn't have a real army.
Do not like them then?
Well, like...
I like what you like.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
I'm going to give you guys a crash course on Hezbollah. Let's start back from the beginning. 1983, suicide truck bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. 45 embassy staff were killed, 34 injured. They bombed a French...
Yeah, the U.S. was occupying Lebanon at the time. In 1983, the U.S. was carrying out a hostile military occupation of Lebanon. So, yeah, if you occupy somebody else's country, as Greg Stoker has put it, you will eat rounds. Like, what was the U.S. fucking doing in Lebanon? Maybe they shouldn't have been there. I like... Notice, if you read this... If you read the thing that he's put right up, he skipped over 1982. Israel invades Lebanon. Hezbollah is formed with Iranian financial and military backing. In other words, Hezbollah was formed as a response to Israeli-U.S. aggression against Lebanon. But he conveniently leaves that bit out.
Marine barracks in Beirut, 300 dead. Attempted murder of the head of the Turkish Jewish community. Suicide bombing of the Argentine Jewish Mutual Association building in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, that is attributed to them by far-right groups. Like, there are... Even now in Argentina, it is hotly controversial who actually did that bombing. Because the thing is... The people most likely to bomb a Jewish organization in Argentina would not have been Hezbollah, would not have been Iran. They would have been the Argentine far right, who carried out the largest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. And October 7th, contrary to a lot of propaganda, did not break that record.
Aires, 85 killed, 300 injured.
I don't have...
I mean, he's looking at Memory TV. That's a pro-Israel website. So naturally, they're going to put it this way. I mean, they're also known for, like, coming up with translations of Arab media with a pro-Israel slant on the translations.
Let's just say.
Bombing of a restaurant near the U.S. Air Force Base in Spain, 18 killed, 83 injured.
Okay, so they were... near a U.S. Air Force base in Spain, and they actually captured a CIA operative there as well. But at the time, again, the U.S. was at war with Lebanon. You're allowed to attack the fucking military of a country that is invading you.
Car bombs of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, 11 killed. 50.
And notice how far back this stuff goes. This is we're still in the early fucking 80s. This is Reagan.
Injured. Hijacking of Kuwait airline planes, killed 4. Suicide bombing at the Israeli Embassy in Buenos Aires, 29 killed, 240 injured.
I don't have an issue with them.
I mean, again, this is memory. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the U.S. the U.S. classifies all sorts of shit as terrorists. I mean, Biden classified socialism and anarchism as terrorist ideologies, for fuck's sake.
say.
Suspected of carrying out suicide bombing missions against Israeli vacationers.
Suspected by whom? Like, again, this is a pro-Israel website he's relying on here. Like, suspected of. I mean, the other ones, there were some that were, at the very least, dubious claims in there. But when even memory, the best they can do is suspected of?
Bulgaria, indicted for the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri.
In a Western-controlled tribunal.
I don't have an issue with them.
Hezbollah participated in the Syrian civil war on the side of Assad, violent dictator. They're responsible for the genocide of well over 500,000 Syrians. Here's an article from Amnesty International. Syria, surrender or starve? Strategy displays.
Let's see, does this even mention Hezbollah in there? And notice, I mean, I like how Ethan here is just has created this narrative where it was nobody else. It was just Assad, Hezbollah. I guess he would probably put Russia in there too. I mean, they certainly belong in there. They were there. Still are there to a certain extent. But not mentioning the Gulf dictatorships and the US-backed, like, paramilitaries that were already, okay, from, like, NSA documents that were released by Edward Snowden and then sat on for 5 years by The Intercept. We know the US was well aware that Saudi Arabia was actively running paramilitary forces in Syria against the government and supporting them as early as 2011. So if we're going to talk about this, we also do have to talk about the large number of extremely murderous US proxies that were also operating there.
Thousands amounts to crimes against humanity. Does that sound familiar?
I don't have an issue with them.
While the Syrian government's stated aim has been to vanquish opposition fighters, its cynical use of surrender or starve.
Like, I mean, this language, opposition fighters, I mean, and yeah, there's a lot that sucks about Assad and the Syrian government, but this language is ridiculous because you had, I mean, like, they just say opposition fighters when they're talking literally, I mean, they're talking in many cases about foreign paramilitaries operating on Syrian territory and killing large numbers of Syrian civilians themselves.
Tactics has involved a devastating combination of sieges and bombardments.
I don't have an issue with them.
These have been part of a systematic...
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a dishonest... This is just such a fucking dishonest way of doing this. Like, he's calling Hassan Piker a liar. When he very specifically said that what he was talking about, i.e. Hezbollah's current role right now as a support front defending, imposing a cost on Israel for the genocide that is being carried out, and he says in that context that he doesn't have an issue with them, and he's using that as if all this other shit has been put to him, and he agrees with the framing and everything, which is a bit much, since it hasn't been put to him. We don't know what he would say about any of this. But yeah, I mean, this is so fucking dishonest.
As well as widespread attack on civilians that amounts to crimes against humanity.
Like, none of this says anything. None of this says anything about Hezbollah. I've read this entire thing. This is not an article about Hezbollah's role in Syria. It is just just about the Syrian government's role. That's all this says. This doesn't say anything at all about what Hezbollah were doing, good or bad.
What Israel's doing in Gaza.
I don't have an issue with them.
Relentless attacks on civilians in addition to immense suffering.
Again, this is the same article. It doesn't say anything about Hezbollah. He's like, this is literally not talking about the group that he said in a very specific context that he doesn't have an issue with.
Siege tactics, deliberate attacks on civilians and civilian objects cause unimaginable misery. The government and Hezbollah forces burned the agricultural fields just as a form of punishment.
Oh wait, was there one line in there? Like, I'm looking at this and I still don't see it. Oh, here we go. Second paragraph in there. You just scrolled. But notice the next paragraph here. Evidence also shows that armed opposition groups, which is to say, in many cases, foreign paramilitaries operating on Syrian soil, in particular, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Ahrar al-Sham Islamic movement, the first of which is definitely an Al-Qaeda front, if I remember correctly. Yeah, okay. Now they can be thought. A Center for Strategic and International Studies says they can be thought of as a relatively localized Syrian terrorist organization which retains a Salafi jihadist ideology despite its public split from Al-Qaeda. Okay, let me just drop that link in chat for you so you can see what I'm looking at. But yeah, I mean, it says everything. Oh, like, this is the extent of the mention of the atrocities being committed by these Gulf dictatorship, U.S.-backed paramilitary groups, like, and it says that they unlawfully besieged Kefraya and Fua, restricted and confiscated humanitarian aid, and shelled agricultural fields.
Even though we couldn't access them.
I don't have an issue with them.
Once again, sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza. As of May 21,
no, actually, in the sense that Israel is killing a lot more people a lot faster in Gaza.
1,000 people is estimated to have been killed.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, on 28th June 2022, the UN OHCHR stated that at least 306,888 civilians had been killed in Syria between March 2011 and March 2021. The Lancet, the most leading peer-reviewed international medical journal, did an authoritative peer-reviewed study of mortality in Gaza since the beginning of the genocide, and they came to the conclusion that in just the first year, roughly about 200,000 people had already been murdered. And this is in 10 years. Okay? That's bad. I mean, that's a horrible thing. I mean, I'm not saying that. But to say that sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza? No. What Israel is doing in Gaza is that times literally 10. Well, nearly 10.
With 13 million Syrians being displaced and 7 million refugees forced to flee Syria.
I don't have a...
13 million displaced. Okay, so 13 million internally displaced out of a population of 23.23 million as of, well, no, that's as of 2023. Okay, 2011 it was 22.73 million. So, okay, on the numbers of internally displaced, it approaches the situation in Gaza.
Issue with them, let's just say.
Here's some quotes from Hezbollah leaders, including Narshala. Our struggle will end only when this entity, if Israel, is obliterated. We recognize no treaty with it, no ceasefire, and no peace agreement.
Okay, so they're saying when Palestine is liberated. It's a racist apartheid regime, and now it is actively genocidal as well. Are you saying that it should continue to exist after it does this? That a regime that should do this and then get to just go on as if it hadn't? According to Shaul Shai. Okay, who the hell is Shaul Shai? Military historian and former deputy head of the National Security Council of Israel. That's who this quote is supplied by. Like, look at how weaselly. I mean, he used the word weaselly to describe Hassan. Look how weaselly this quote is. According to Shaul Shai, who they do not identify as a leading Israeli government official, Hassan Nasrallah said in a speech delivered in Beirut and aired on Al-Manar TV. Well, if it was aired on Al-Manar TV and we even have an air date, surely we don't need Shaul Shai in there, because we could just look at the fucking broadcast. And also, one thing you have to note, like when he says, what do the Jews want? You know, in Arabic it would be al-Yahud. And the thing is, because of the way Israel presented itself to the indigenous population largely just refers to Israel as al-Yahud. They mean the colonists, the settlers, and when you ask, they get specific, and, you know, they are very clear. They mean the ones who invaded their country, took their land, kicked them off of it, and have been torturing and murdering them ever since. But here, like, also this Wikipedia article, first of all, we have to wonder why Shaul Shai is in this in the first place, because if this was on Al-Manar TV, then it should be possible to just verify the quote directly.
To Shaul Shai, Nasrallah said in a speech delivered in Beirut.
You gonna explain who Shaul Shai is? I mean, you've got that insider knowledge there.
Throughout history, the Jews have been Allah's most cowardly and avaricious creatures. If you look all over the world, you will find no one more miserly and greedily than they are.
I don't have an issue with them.
Like, okay, so once again, so we're assuming that we're supposed to think that this stuff was put to him. This is what was supposed to happen, like, in our heads. Like, rationally, we know this wasn't put to him. He was saying a very specific thing and having a very specific take. This is so fucking dishonest. Because, like, surely he would say, wait a second, why are we taking this? Who the hell is Shaul Shai and why are we taking his word? Saad Ghorayeb. Who is she? Works for the Carnegie Middle East Center. Okay. I mean, Chomsky apparently has described her. I'm looking at who this is who's being quoted. Chomsky's actually called her the leading scholar of Hezbollah, and Chomsky has actually pushed back very heavily on the designation of Hezbollah as a terrorist group.
We searched the entire world for a person more cowardly, despicable, weak, and feeble in psych, mind, and ideology and religion. We would not find anyone like the Jew. Notice, I do not say the Israeli.
I mean, again, this is Wikipedia, and we do not actually have any verification for this at all. This is really dishonest. Like, is she quoting him as saying this in the same place that this Shaul Shai was saying it? Like, who are we talking about? Look at the fucking footnotes, Ethan.
I don't have an issue with them.
Badi Kainban, in his 23 October 2002 article, quoted Nasrallah as saying, if Jews all gather in Israel...
Badi Shaiban.
Israel, it will save us the trouble of going after them worldwide. The history of Jews has proven that, regardless of the Zionist proposal, they are a people who are evil in their ideas. The state of...
Like, again, every one of these is somebody else, these are quotes that are attributed to somebody else, and we're supposed to think that Hassan is necessarily would not say anything different if this was put to him and like proven to his satisfaction.
Of the grandsons of apes and pigs, the Zionist Jews, and he condemns them as the murderers of the prophet.
Wait. Okay, this was published on his official website, but who did the translation? And note, this article immediately treats Memory and Camera, two pro-Israel propaganda organizations, as just legitimate sources.
And pigs, the Zionist Jews, and he condemns them as the murderers of the prophet. According to Hassan Nasrallah, he said the Jews invented the legend of the Nazi. According to the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs, read the whole thing if you're going to post it. You're leaving that out, are you, Ethan? Because that is kind of important. If he's the one, if like the Israeli Foreign Ministry, who have been known to like a tall tale every once in a while, kind of full of shit a lot of the time, if they're the source for this, then there is no fucking source. Either there's another source that independently confirms this, or this didn't happen. Nazi atrocities.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
So my point is, if you're going to come down so hard on Ela for what she said, where's the energy when Hassan defends Hezbollah and Hassan Nasrallah, who is a violent, genocidal, anti-Semite?
Like to say that he's genocidal, he's never done anything that could seriously, okay, there are people, I notice Ethan is not using the word genocide, and I don't know enough about him to know whether that's because he rejects the word, rejects the description, or not. People in chat might be able to help me out on that one, but I'm not making any assumptions one way or another because I just don't know enough about him. But lots of, you get people, the sort of people who will accuse Nasrallah and Hezbollah of being genocidal tend to be the same people who will look at Israel killing over 200,000 people in less than a year with a very specific and openly acknowledged plan to starve the remainder to death and say that's not a genocide.
Who mass murdered Syrians and committed terrorism all around the world. Where's all the 8-year subscribers flooding into his community saying they can't follow him in these footsteps anymore?
Schön, dass du dabei sein konntest.
I can't believe I'm calling Nasrallah base. I mean, listen.
We're running out of time, but there's only a minute left in this thing, so we're going to finish it out.
Listen. You have to remember something, okay? A lot of these dudes...
Okay, let's note here. I know this quote that, this is Memory TV, so they're full of shit. They're a pro-Israel propaganda outfit, so, again, independent confirmation necessary in order to believe anything of their translations. But I'm familiar with this particular quote of his because a lot of people posted on Twitter, where he says... a lot of people try to say that it's like the Israel lobby is controlling the U.S. or Israel is controlling the U.S. And he says, bullshit, Israel is a tool of the U.S. Israel is there to do the U.S.'s bidding.
You see them in their fucking fits, and you hear about, some of their attitudes about, gay people, for example, and you immediately fucking resort to Orientalist perspectives, not realizing that these motherfuckers are better read than you... But a million, okay? It's not a broken clock situation. No, dude. Half of these dudes literally get educated in America and in the UK. What the fuck are you guys talking about?
Nice dog he's got.
This is why it's Orientalist. To literally look at these dudes and go, oh no, they're fucking barbaric baboons, and sometimes they get this shit right. No, dude, he knows. It's crazy. He's read more books than you could ever imagine. And also, ultimately,
I mean, yeah, he is extremely, like, I'm by no means a scholar of Nasrullah or Hezbollah, but, I mean, he very clearly is extremely well read. That is true. It's like, and, see, I have a feeling, as I said, I don't really know Hassan, but I have a feeling if you put any of those quotes that were actually verifiable to him, he would probably say what seems pretty obvious looking at this, namely that he was saying in the context of what Hezbollah, the main thing Hezbollah is doing right now, which is to say defending Lebanon against U.S.-Israeli aggression and degrading the military capabilities of the genocidal Zionist regime, that he doesn't have an issue with that. And yeah, I mean, I would imagine he would probably say that doesn't mean he does. He would probably say what like any fucking normal person would say, and say that doesn't mean he necessarily agrees with anything else the guy said or did, but that he has definitely said things and done things that were quite valid.
he is regarded as a pretty brilliant a person in terms of like everything that he's as an active petition for his arrest by the ICC. The person that...
Oh, is he trying to do a juxtaposition now? Is he trying to do a juxtaposition and saying that it's somehow a contradiction for Hassan to be criticizing the man, Yoav Gallant, who announced a plan to exterminate the population of Gaza, the entire population of Gaza, and executed that plan quite effectively, to the extent that more people have been murdered in Gaza in a year. I mean, almost as many people have been murdered in Gaza in a year as were killed in 10 years of conflict in Syria. And to say that that guy, to call him a moderating influence and like whitewash his record is fucked up, at the same time as he says he does not have issues with somebody who's never killed anywhere near that many people, and whose main role right now is attacking Israeli military facilities in support of the Palestinian resistance against genocide.
They are talking about here, before getting fired by Benjamin Netanyahu, the person that they're calling a moderating voice said this, which is the reason why there is an active petition, an active application for a warrant for his arrest by the ICC. I don't know. I'm legitimately shocked.
Yeah, I mean, they really aren't comparable, actually, when you put it that way, Ethan. I see what you're trying to do with that juxtaposition. You're actually debunking yourself in real
The
time.
problem why I'm frustrated with this whole situation, you guys know me. I'm more than willing, more than happy to address shortcomings.
This body language, too. I mean, it's like, I squirm a little bit in my chair because I'm not entirely comfortable. I haven't completely worked out the setup. And then I sort of wince a bit because this chair creaks a lot, like it's fucking Tales from the Crypt or something. But, like, the way he's going about this, like, he's just, like, bobbing and weaving as he says all this.
And errors that I've made, and take every chance I can to learn and grow from them, right?
Like, okay, so you're saying that you would give yourself a chance to learn and grow from things that you definitely did say about somebody who definitely sucks. But on the other hand, you're going to treat Hassan as if he agreed with every single thing that anyone has ever attributed to Nasrullah or Hezbollah, because you think that's somehow fair. Like, I mean, that's just so fucking dishonest. Like, maybe, like, I mean, why not put it to him? Maybe he has actually responded and said something. I mean, maybe he has actually responded to this and pointed out where he actually stands on these examples. The real ones, the unverifiable ones, the ones that are from absolutely ridiculous sources like the Israeli Foreign Ministry.
The problem I have is that there's our subreddit and our community is over.
Oh, wait. Why did it look like there was 1 minute left in this? There are 5 minutes left in this.
Ridden with these 8-year long-time ultra fans who can no longer, tolerate us, or they can no longer walk down this path with us as we've thrown our lot in with the Nazis, right? But like these.
Wait a second. I feel like I already just saw this. Oh, yeah, I did.
Why? It's Orientalist. To literally look at these dudes and go, oh no, they're fucking barbaric.
Okay, no, that was stuff we already saw. Oh, okay. I mean, if there's something like that in the mix, Riveroon, yeah, I'm sorry, I take what I said back. Because that can certainly have that effect. That can certainly have that effect, and I wouldn't want to, like, disparage somebody over that. But, yeah. Okay, it is time to wrap up. Thank you to everyone who joined in. Hope you like the new look of chat. I think it's a definite improvement over what we had. And I will be back next Friday at 11:30 p.m.